many of the countries all around the world were fighting with each other. And millions of people were killed during World War II. It was terrible. My father even participated in World War II right at the very end. And so I wanted to show you a little bit about him so that you'll understand kind of what kind of person would join the war. You had probably family members like that, and I'll tell you why he got in the Navy. This is his older brother. His name is Hugh Cannon. Hugh Cannon lived here in Salt Lake area, and he was a handsome young man. He joined the Navy to fight against the Japanese and the Germans. The Japanese had attacked us in Hawaii, sank a whole bunch of our ships. And the Germans, they were being bad. They sank some of our ships too. We said, okay, that's enough for you. We're not having any more sinking of our ships without us fighting back. So this is my uncle, my father's brother, Hugh. He joined the Navy, and he got to go out and serve on a destroyer. The destroyer is a small Navy ship, which I'll show you a picture of a destroyer. Yeah, it looks like this. A Navy ship that floats on the water, has some guns, and they can destroy submarines, and they can shoot airplanes, and they fight on the water to protect our ships on the water. So that's
it was small.
It is fairly small because we have battleships and cruisers that are much bigger. Aircraft carriers are very huge. This one only has maybe 150 men that serve on that ship to make it work and to fight with it. Okay, so that's a destroyer, and my Uncle Hugh was a sailor. He operated the radar. It means in the command center they had this new invention. They could look with radar and see ships far away and airplanes far away that were coming. He operated this new mechanism, this new high-tech equipment called a radar. Yes?
My great-grandpa was in the Navy.
Really? Well, Navy men are good. We like them. Okay, so while he was fighting on his destroyer, he was given orders to participate with a bunch of other ships over in the Pacific Ocean, way over near China, near the Philippines. And the Japanese had a great big fleet of a whole bunch of big warships. And they were attacking our small group of warships. And they were going to destroy them. They were going to make all of our ships sink and kill all of our sailors. We couldn't let that happen, so we had to run away. But we couldn't get away fast enough because the Japanese ships were pretty fast too. So what we did, our commander, the admiral, he sent a couple of little ships to go fight them and slow them down. And one of the ships that went to fight them was this ship that my uncle was on. And they fought like crazy. They fought so hard that the big ships in the Japanese Navy, they thought, this must be a trick. They're here to surprise us and they're going to bring another fleet in and attack us and we'll lose. So they waited just a little while to see what's going on. But in the meantime, Uncle Hugh's ship was so brave, they attacked right at a great big Japanese cruiser. Had great big guns. It could shoot further than our guns. They scared them. They couldn't believe we would attack right into them with just a little destroyer ship. We did. Eventually, the Japanese ships won. And they sank my uncle's ship. He died. They never did find his body. Even today, if you go up to Memory Grove in Salt Lake City, there's a stone marker there for his name. He's not buried there. They never did find his body. He sank in the ocean. But he fought for freedom. He fought so the Japanese would not take over our country. And that's what people in the Navy and in the Army sometimes do. Well, that made my family so mad. My father, his little brother, he said, I want to go in the Navy too. I want to go kill those Japanese. They killed my brother. So he did. He joined the Navy. And he went in the Navy, got trained to be a radar operator. And he got assigned also to a destroyer. And the war ended. We won the war. So my father was in the Navy, but the war was over. So he got to spend a couple of years on that very destroyer that I showed you, and his job was being a radar man, but also he got to go on shore and pick up the mail for the whole ship. So here he is in China with his Jeep, picking up the mail to bring to his ship so that everybody can have their letters from home. There was no war at this time. He was just a mailman for the ship and also a radar operator. But he felt proud to be in the Navy and to serve his country, to make sure that nobody else would try to take over our country. So, there came a time my father decided he would spend his whole career serving in the army. He liked protecting our country, saving us from the enemy, making sure no one would dare attack us again. And so, when he came back and went to college at the University of Utah, he got a degree and he became an officer. He became an officer, a new second lieutenant, and he went to Korea. They sent him to Korea because there was a war going on in Korea at that time. Where did they send him? Right up near the front where they were negotiating how to end the war. And he helped to negotiate the end to the Korean War. That was his new job as a new lieutenant just out of college. And the war kind of stopped fighting, and that's how it is today. We don't really have a peace treaty, but we're not really fighting each other in Korea either. We still have soldiers there to make sure they don't attack us anymore. Well, a little later in his career, I was born after he got back from Korea, and he decided he's going to stay in the army, see if he can make a career of it, and we had another war. Anybody know what war that would have been, next one after the Korean War? The Vietnam War. There was a war over in Vietnam, right near China, where the communists were trying to take over the country. You guys know what communism is? Let me tell you what communism is, because you got to know. It's awful. Communism is a kind of government where you don't get to own any property. Say you want to have a grocery store and sell groceries to people and make a living. You can't own a grocery store. The government owns all the grocery stores. Say you want to be a farmer. You buy a piece of land, you're going to farm the land, you're going to sell the crops that you grow. Oh no. Under communism, you can't own your land. It belongs to the government. Everything belongs to the government. Well, who makes all the decisions about what to do with that land or with that business? The government. So when the government owns everything and they tell everybody what to do, and when you grow up, you don't get to decide what you want to do for a living. Instead, they tell you, you're going to be a farmer, you're going to be a mechanic, and you're going to be in the army. They just tell you that stuff, whether you like it or not. Well, communism is not a good way for a country to run. There's powerful men at the top who are so mean, if you say something bad about their government, they'll just kill you. They have. I'm telling you, ever since World War II, they have killed millions and millions of people just because they didn't like the communists. We don't like communists. We don't like communism. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to join the army. To make sure we did not have to live under a communist government that tells us everything we have to do. So, my father wanted to do that too. He stayed in the army, and he went to Vietnam. And while he was in Vietnam, he got to meet some important people. Here we have a general, General Westmoreland. He was the commander of all the U.S. Army in all of Vietnam. It's not a very fancy picture, but that's a picture of him. My father took the picture. So there he is, in Vietnam, General Westmoreland. My father was assigned in the capital city as a public information officer, meaning he told the newspapers what was happening in the war. so that they could understand what our soldiers were doing over in Vietnam. I have a friend married to my cousin who was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. Here's a picture of his helicopter. After it crashed, he got shot down. He actually got shot down 5 times. But each time he lived. Usually he got injured. One time when his helicopter crashed, they shot him down. He ended up upside down with his head underwater, and he was stuck inside the helicopter. He had to find a way to get out. Well, this was that helicopter. They dug it out of the mud hole where he nearly drowned, and they put him in a new helicopter and let him fly some more. So it was dangerous to be in a war. Sometimes in the old days they used to fight with muskets and cannons. We still use cannons, modern cannons. Now we also use helicopters and jets and things like that. Yes, question.
Do you also use cannons when you were in it because it says cannon?
It says cannon, doesn't, that's my name. Now my father, he was a specialist in the Army in cannons. He was in the artillery corps of the Army. So when he was a young lieutenant and soon afterward became a captain, on Saturday morning, just for fun, after the work week was finished, not for fun, they would do this. This is his battery of cannons, and they would lay them out on the parade field with all their equipment to show that they had taken good care of their equipment and they were ready to fight. So these are the parade field where on Saturday morning they would put their cannons in a row and all the equipment they needed to make the cannons fire, and then the men would stand behind it in their uniforms and they would prove that we're ready. And on Saturday about lunchtime, when they had showed all their stuff for inspection, they could go home for the weekend. So that's what it looked like when they would lay out their equipment for inspection on Saturday morning, and here are the men all lined up to show that they look good too, just like their equipment. Now, I found something when my dad died. I found something very interesting in his stuff. I didn't know what it was. I looked at it, I said, this looks like part of the World War I uniform. I think when he first got in the Army, either he or his brother were issued these pieces of equipment. Does anybody know what you do with them?
Armbands,
No.
bands.
Leg bands. You put them on your feet, tie up the laces. This goes under your foot so it doesn't come off. And then as you run through the forest, the bushes don't hurt your legs. It's cheaper than boots. Tall leather boots do the same thing. But if you can't afford to give all your soldiers tall leather boots, you give them leggings. These were the original leggings. You girls wear leggings today? This was men's leggings during World War I and early World War II. And you can see that these were his because inside he had to stencil Cannon GB. His name is Glenn Badger, and his service number that they stenciled inside so everybody knew these were Glenn B. Cannon's leggings. And you wouldn't get them mixed up with somebody else's leggings. So I keep those just because they're old and they're kind of cool. Now, after a while, my father retired from the Army. He spent 18 years in the Army, 3 years in the Navy. So he had 21 total years of service, and he got to retire. Then he moved out to Draper, and he became the mayor in Draper. For 6 years, he was the mayor of Draper.
That's great.
He was a school teacher for his regular job, a 6th grade teacher. Anyway, that's what men would do. They would grow up, do important work, then they would have a nice job after they retired, and they get old and die. So that happens to all of us, and that's kind of what's going to happen to me here before long. But let me tell you some more. there was a time when I was young, and I decided I want to be like my dad. So I went to BYU instead of the University of
Yes, good.
Utah. There, they had a program where I could take classes and learn how to be an Army officer. Well, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn to be an Army officer. So I took those classes and I learned how to be an officer. And then, when I had been in ROTC for about 2.5 years, learning how to be an officer, ROTC, that stands for the Reserve Officer Training Corps. They would train us how to be officers in the Army. And after I had been there about 2.5 years, I had to get a leadership position because I'm learning to be a leader, an officer in the Army. So rather than just go out and march the soldiers around and show them where to shoot, I said, I want to do something different. I love to play my trombone. I was a member of the incomparable Cougar Marching Band. Yes, I was. But I said, I don't want to be in the Cougar Marching Band. Why don't we? We had 500 cadets. This was during the time of the Vietnam War. And there were 500 young men in college who wanted to learn how to be officers. Well, I said, give me the ones who can play an instrument, and we'll make an ROTC marching band with us guys who are learning how to be officers. So we got them together. We had about 17 or 20 of us. And we gathered in the dark in January. We would go down in the basement of the Harris Fine Arts Center where they had a black theater, a big open concrete space, and we would learn how to march. Yep, I would stand there. I said, all right, forward, march. Your left, your left, your left, right. And we would learn how to march. I had to learn how to tell them when to turn. Because if you think about it, when you get there, if you're marching along, you got to tell them when to turn so they don't crash into the wall. Call them left, march, and they would turn just in time. So I would tell them when to turn, and we had to march inside of that place until we learned how to march. And then we could go out on the parade field, at the flagpole. And when they take down the flag at night, and we bring all of our cadets in their uniforms like this together, we would play taps, or we would play retreat. You've heard those bugle calls? Well, that's what we would do. And so I was in charge of the very first cadet marching band at BYU. Well, I did a pretty good job. I also had to go to learn how to be an officer to ROTC summer camp. Oh, fun, huh? You're thinking, yay, summer camp, we love summer camp.
Never gone to a summer camp.
This is more like Army basic training. For 6 weeks, we went up to Fort Lewis, Washington, and all day, every day, they made us march. We had to run, we had to do push-ups, we had to, when it was time to eat lunch, they would take us into the mess hall. Now they call it a dining facility, but back then they called it a mess hall, where you would eat your mess of food. You get a tray, you hurry through the line, get your food, sit down, eat as fast as you can, and then they tell you to get out of there. You had about 10 minutes to eat your food, and then you gotta go, because there's more training to do. Well, for 6 weeks we trained morning and night, all day long, even into the night. One morning they got us up in the morning. They said, we're going to go on a mission. We're going to conduct a reconnaissance patrol. Get ready. So they told us where we're going. They told us what we're going to do. We got our weapons ready. We got our helmets on. We're going to go all night long. So in the evening, we got into the trucks. And they took us out to this place to drop us off. And our job was to march all night long through the forests of Fort Lewis, Washington. And I'm telling you, those rainforests are thick, dark jungles. All night long, we had to find our way in the dark, but we couldn't turn on any lights because the enemy might see us. And we had to sneak and peek and snoop to find out what we were going to see on the other end. All night, we wove our way through the forest until in the morning. I was so tired. I'd been up all day. And then I stayed up all night marching, climbing over logs and going through rivers. We had to cross over a river. We finally got there. We sneaked and we looked and we saw the objective and we wrote a report and then we could go back. Oh great, now we got to go back. Except they came and picked us up in a bus instead. But we were so tired. That was good training. We learned how to be tired and to still be effective. Yes, please.
Did you get to rest?
Well, that next night, we had to stay up all the next day and do more training. Finally, when it was bedtime at night, then we got to sleep. Man, we were tired.
Maybe you should have slept all day.
We would like to have slept all day. They wouldn't let us.
What?
They wanted us to learn how to be tired. I think I know how to be tired. They wanted to teach us how to be miserable. I think I know how to be miserable. But now I really know how to be miserable because I did it. Well, now I'm trained. Now I got commissioned. I was a second lieutenant in the United States Army, and they sent me to Virginia to get trained to be a transportation officer. Well, you see, a transportation officer's job is to have some trucks and some drivers and to command the drivers where to drive, when to pick up the cargo, where to go, and if you get attacked by the enemy in an ambush, you lead the men so that they can survive the ambush and escape. It's not that easy. You're driving all these trucks in a long row. If someone starts shooting at you from the side, we used to tell them, if you're in the front, keep on driving, get out of there. If you're stuck where they're shooting you, get out and hide. If you're behind them, you stay back there. Don't get up where they're shooting. And then what do? You fight them. Maybe you call in some artillery to shoot cannons on them and kill the enemy. Or you shoot them with your rifle, because we always carried rifles with us. We were ready for that. And that was what a transportation officer did until I got promoted. I went to Germany, and I served in Germany as a lieutenant in the 89th Transportation Company. I was the company, I wasn't the company commander, I was the platoon leader. But then I moved back to America after 3 years in Germany, and they taught me how to be a company commander. I went to the advanced course to learn how to command troops. And sure enough, when I got out of the school, they sent me to Fort Lewis, Washington, and they said, all right, Captain Cannon, you're the company commander of 140 truck drivers and cooks and mechanics and an armorer to take care of our guns and our ammunition. And we had a training sergeant and all these drivers, and I was the company commander. That's when I was young. Can you believe it?
No.
Hard to imagine. I used to have dark hair. Who would have thought?
Long hair. White hair.
The 513th Transportation Company, out in front of my company, you know, we had a building where we had our headquarters and where all the soldiers slept. And this used to hang with a chain underneath the sign for the 513th Transportation Company. And it's told them, Captain P.R. Cannon is the commander here. If you have a problem with us, talk to him. So there's this sign that said I was the commander of the 513th Transportation Company. Well, that was pretty exciting. I got to serve there in Fort Lewis, Washington. But then they said, Captain Cannon, we give you orders. You are to travel to go to a school in Indianapolis, another school in Massachusetts, and you're going to learn how to be a computer operator. You're going to supervise computer programmers and computer operators in Berlin, Germany. Berlin, Germany. I liked it because, you know, when I was a missionary, I served 2 years in Germany. I could speak German. Heute spreche ich noch Deutsch. Just to make sure you knew. Ich kann Deutsch. Well, there I was, sent to Germany, learn how to manage people who are working with computers in a spy center. We were located in West Berlin. And you might not know where West Berlin is, so I gotta show you. Here's a little map. It doesn't show you where it is, but this is the city of Berlin. Yes, a question.
What kind of cup is that?
This is a drinking mug. If you like to drink beer, you drink it out of things like
Why
this.
do you have a beer?
It's the thing in Germany. Even if you don't drink beer, still you get the beer mug. I got a few more at home. But the reason I wanted to show you this one.
Question.
Oh, another question.
I said don't question.
No, new question. I like the questions. Yes. That's good. All right, but I wanted to show you this map of Berlin. This is West Berlin. At the end of World War II, we were so mad at the Germans. They had made a war against the whole world in World War I. And then they made another war in World War II. And we were so mad, we said, we are never going to let them win another war. We're going to break up their whole country. And their capital city, we're going to divide it in 4 pieces and give 1 piece to each country that beat them. Here it is. We gave this red piece to the Soviet Union, Russia today. We gave this blue, red, white, and blue piece on top, we gave it to France. This red, white, and blue piece with a plus sign in the middle, we gave that to Great Britain. And this piece at the bottom with the American flag, the Americans took that piece of Berlin. So the city, the capital city, was divided into 4 different parts. They were never again going to make a war against the whole world. We were going to make sure of it. So there was Berlin. Yes, a question.
When are we gonna have our break?
Oh, I don't know if there will be a break. This is going to be a lot like basic training. When we're finished with the first presentation, we're going to go outside and learn how to march. I think you should learn how to march, don't you? Yeah, the boys are ready.
Make a game
They can
about
do it.
that at least. I want to march.
Oh, the game is you do push-ups if you do it wrong. This is the army. So,
Wow, Kate. Wow.
oh, don't waste your push-ups now. You're going to need your energy for later. All right, this city of Berlin that was divided into 4 parts, it's in the middle of the part of the country. See, we not only divided their city into 4 parts, we divided their whole country of Germany into 4 parts. We gave 1 part of the country of Germany to France up north, Great Britain in the middle, America in the south, and in the east we gave that whole part of the country to Russia.
Wait, so Germany
what-
doesn't exist anymore?
Well, it didn't. Things have changed since then.
Wait, so it's just not there? Like,
Oh, it's there. It's back. They brought it back together.
aw, darn
I
it.
guess people weren't afraid they're going to make a war anymore. But what happened was, this city of West Berlin is smack in the middle of that part of the country that we gave to Russia. So Russia decided to be mean. And they decided, oh yes, a question.
Do we still have that part? Never mind. You were about to talk about they're taking America.
Yeah, we still have that part.
Wait, we do?
The French still have part, and the British still have part, but we give them a lot of freedom in there. We don't really, they're not our slaves or anything.
That's
But what happened was, the Russians
cool.
began to be our enemy. They used to be our friend during the war, and they decided, no, we want communism. And you guys don't like communism? Well, you're our enemy then. We were afraid they were going to make a war with us. One day in August, I think it was 1961, in August, it was a Sunday, when the people woke up in Germany, instead of having 4 parts of the country, and you could travel to all the different 4 parts, they built a great big wall right across the border where the Russian part was. And the people on the Russian side, they couldn't escape. They couldn't get out. If they tried to get out and come to the west, they got shot and killed.
Oh, that's
It was terrible. What if your family lived over in the east part? You couldn't see them again. That's how mean the communists are. Yes,
It shows the wall on your nut.
it does. You were very observant. If you noticed on that mug, there's a wall right here along the boundary of the Russian sector. And that's because on that Sunday morning, they suddenly put up a wall right through the middle of the city. Now, can you imagine? What if they put up a wall right on I-15 one night? You wake up in the morning and you can't go to the other side of I-15. Sorry, you can't get to the temple in Salt Lake because the wall divides you and you can't go there. Well, that's what it was like in Berlin. They cut the city in half. So that was pretty mean. I just want you to understand how mean those communists were. So with the wall, what kind of wall are they going to make? Well, they're going to make it so you can't get through the wall. They're going to make a barbed wire all over the top of a concrete wall. Now, here it is. When I was a missionary, I was assigned in Berlin, in West Berlin. And my companion and I one day, on our preparation day, we went right to downtown and we said, let's go see the wall. So we went down to see the wall. You know how they made the wall the first time when they first made it? All the buildings, the big buildings downtown, they just closed all the doors, put bricks in them, closed all the windows, put bricks in them. The building now is a wall. If you live inside that building, you're going to have to go out the back door. You can't come out the front door anymore because that's the free side. And you got to stay on the communist side. And they put barbed wire up on top so nobody could get over. When I got assigned to Berlin when I was in the army. There were people who tried to get across the wall and the Russian guards shot them with machine guns. Killed them. This is what it looked like. Here's the Berlin Wall. This thing that's round used to have barbed wire on top. They make it a big round roller so you can't grab onto anything to climb over. And inside here is no man's land. If you go in there, these guys in the tower, the guards, they have machine guns. They'll shoot you dead. And that was very close. That was about 1/3 of a mile from my house in Berlin. Betsy remembers it. When we used to go to church on Sunday, we would drive right by this wall. I mean, right next to it. Because the street we took to go to church was right next to the wall. And we could see the guard towers with guards up in there that had their machine guns ready to shoot people. These are the lights. So at night, you can't sneak across in the dark. They light the whole place up. So they can shoot you if you try to get through. No one could leave East Germany. Now here's another picture of what it looked like at night. Should I hold it up here? This is the Brandenburg Gate, a very famous monument right in the middle of West Berlin. Well, in the middle of Berlin. But it happened that the wall went right through there. This is the wall. Right next to the Brandenburg Gate. The gate into the middle of the city. The communists were so mean, they built that wall right through the middle of the city. And this is another picture that shows you the wall at night. If you ever tried to cross, look at these little X's. You see those little X's? Oh, they're not little. They are great big steel beams, 3 of them crossways. You know why they put them there? In case anybody tries to bash a bus or a big truck through the wall to escape, you can't run over those things. If you drive up on those things, you get stuck and your bus or your truck gets crooked. Oh, they shoot you. It was ugly. Oh yeah, they don't hesitate. You go in the middle, there's a wall on the east side and a wall on the west. If you're in that middle territory, you're a dead man. You're a dead man. So, I just tell you that story because West Berlin is real. It was ugly. And you guys might not know about it. We hope other countries don't do that today, but Russia really is not a very nice country today either.
Wait, is the wall still there?
Actually, in 1989, shortly after I was in Berlin, the Soviet Union collapsed. The whole country failed, and they took down the wall. So, I saved a piece of it here. Let's see if we can show it to you. I wrapped it in this paper because it's kind of crumbly. Here's one of the posts that had barbed wire attached to it. You want to hold that and show it to them? Here's another one. You can show them this piece. This is concrete from the wall, and this is the barbed wire that was up on top. It got all rusty, being out in the weather, but I took that off of the wall before the wall came down. Now you can't keep those pieces. You don't have any more. Keep this little one. Betsy, do you remember the night we went camping out in the Grunewald? I took all the kids out camping. Peter was in a high chair.
Mm-hmm.
We went camping, and the wall was right next to us. And that's where I got this barbed wire from, and these pieces of concrete. I said, if everybody takes a piece of the wall, then there won't be any wall left. So I thought I'd take some. There you go. When you're done, you can put it back in here or let somebody else hold it for a minute. Want to hold a piece for a minute? It was funny. We would go over and visit East Berlin, sometimes on the weekend, just to see what it was like over there. And it was like walking out of a modern, fancy city like we have today, and driving into a city that is about 50 years older. It was run down and tired, and they didn't have very much good stuff in the stores. Because the communist workers, they didn't want to work hard. They were making them do whatever job they wanted, and they didn't like having to do all that work. So they didn't work very hard, and they didn't make very much stuff. They were poor. And communists today still are poor. So when I left Berlin, after working there for 3 years, they gave me a plaque. It said, Headquarters, United States Army Field Station. Now, it used to be top secret. I couldn't tell you what we did at the United States Army Field Station, but today, I can tell you. We used to have radios, and they would listen with the radios to what the enemy was saying on their radio. And then we would find out what their plans were and what they're going to do.
What if they figured out you were doing that?
Oh, they knew we were listening, but they had to talk to each other to run their army, and so we would listen in. Even my brother Spencer Cannon, you see him on TV sometimes. He's a sheriff down in Utah County. He used to be a Morse code intercept operator. He wore headphones and he listened to the that's the code that they would use on the other side to send their messages. He would listen to them and write them down while they were doing it. And we would find out what the enemy was planning, just to make sure, in case they thought they were going to attack us again. They couldn't. They could never attack us again. Oh, you know, I worked so hard at all those jobs in the Army. Somebody thought I was doing a pretty good job. So, they gave me a medal. This is called the Meritorious Service Medal. And you only get that if you do a really good job in a really difficult job. And so I earned the Meritorious Service Medal for my work in Berlin and in other places also. Yeah, it's hiding under that plastic cover.
Why is it hiding?
I guess so it doesn't mold or rust or something.
Oh, what is that?
It's just brass.
Have you touched the metal before?
I don't
Or
know if I have.
Or is it always
Now you
been
might
stuck?
wonder, up above the metal, you see these little stripes? We call those ribbons. One is a big one and one's a little one. I have a big one right here. That represents that I earned the Meritorious Service Medal. Now you might say, but Colonel Cannon, why have you got all those leaves on there? There are 4 leaves on there. They're called 4 oak leaves. And every time you earn the Meritorious Service Medal, they give you another leaf. Instead of giving you another medal, they just give you another leaf. So what this means is I earned the Meritorious Service Medal 5 times. 5 times I earned that medal. Now, it doesn't mean I was a hero in wartime. It just means I did my job really well. The heroes get like the Bronze Star or the Silver Star, or the highest of all, highest medal. Anybody know the name of the highest medal?
Gold Star.
Yes, yes, the Congressional Medal of Honor, and my uncle won it. You remember my Uncle Hugh I told you about in the Navy? Who started the whole story? When he was on his ship, they fought so valiantly against that Japanese fleet that the United States Congress gave the Medal of Honor to the captain of the ship on behalf of the whole ship because they fought so bravely, and then they died. So, those medals are pretty important, and some people in my family have earned medals like that. There's one more medal up here that I finally earned at the end of my career. You have to do something amazingly high to get that one. It's called the Legion of Merit. And I don't have the medal to show you, it's a fancy medal. But I earned that one when I was at the embassy in Rome, Italy. You know where Italy is, right? In Europe? The shape of that country is like the shape of a boot down on the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah. Well, I was assigned there. The capital city is Rome. And in there, we have an office that represents the President of the United States. It's called the embassy. And the ambassador is the president's representative in all of Italy. So I worked there with him, and they gave me the Legion of Merit award while I was there. This is an interesting medal that I got. It was easy to get. All I had to do was be assigned to Berlin. It's the World War II Occupation Medal. That means if you were a soldier and you were assigned to occupy Germany after we won the war, then you get to wear that ribbon.
That's easy.
So I was in Berlin. We were occupying Germany after World War II. Well, it was about 25 years after World War II. But then we finally got to have the World War II Occupation Ribbon.
What about the last
Okay, now we're about to take a break, go have some fun. I mean, go learn to march.
Yay!
And I wanted to first see if you have any questions. Okay, yes.
Are we really gonna march?
Oh, of course. You are
Are we
my
really
soldiers.
gonna do push-ups?
You are my subordinates today.
Are we really gonna do push-ups, Kate?
Hey, you just try me. You don't march right, we'll see if you have to do push-ups. Now,
Don't waste
Oh.
your energy and purposely don't do
now you might wonder, why do soldiers have to learn how to march? Well, it keeps them in order. In the old days, the really ancient days when George Washington was here, his soldiers had to march because that's how they would attack the enemy. Marching in straight lines, attacking the enemy. Well, we don't march that way anymore in wartime, but we still learn how to march. So I thought you might like to. Now here's a question. You got a little bit of freedom. Either I can tell you how to march and we practice outside, or we go outside and I tell you how to march and then we march out there. You want to stay in here and learn, or do you want to go out there to learn?
Go outside to learn.
All right.
Let's
Here we
go.
go.